To what extent do personal religious beliefs sway the rate at which the U.S. is able to change ethically and politically? My claim is that personal religious beliefs sway the rate at which the U.S. is able to change ethically and politically. Just a background before this. A study by Pew Research shows that 46% of people believe that religion plays an important part in their life and that their religion should not change because of modern beliefs, while 14% of the population say that their religious beliefs do change with modern culture changing. The civil rights movement started in the 1950s, ended about the 1960s. This was when African Americans were fighting for their equal rights for their Caucasian counterpart. Jim Crow laws, which I have up here, were the discriminatory law that made discrimination against African Americans legal and acceptable culturally. This made the African Americans have to use different facilities than the white people, such as pools, drinking fountains, etc. In this movement, Dr. Charles Jerome, he was a doctor himself, and he did much research on blood transfusions, and sadly, he ended up dying because he needed a blood transfusion because he was in a single vehicular accident. But he went to a whites-only hospital because it was the nearest one, and he was sadly denied access because he was a black man. He was then forced to go to a black-only hospital. This really fueled the fire of the civil rights movement, and it showed people that he didn't do nothing wrong except have a different skin color than the rest of everyone else. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most popular activists during the civil rights movement. He was sent to Birmingham jail because he protested the treatment of black people. He claims that it's not the white citizens council or the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than justice. This means that he believes that it's the person who sits around not saying anything about the injustice rather than people who actually are acting on it. This shows that more people are going to sit around because they don't want to face the consequences, showing that your personal beliefs do affect the way that you're able to function, especially when something terribly wrong is happening. Margaret Thatcher is an activist who was for climate change. She was the first Prime Minister of the UK. She's also called the Iron Lady because of the fact that she is so kind of stubborn in the way that she gets stuff done when she wants to. She claims that a good portion of people didn't believe in climate change and that every country will be affected and no one can output. This means that everyone has to put in something so then something can change for the environment. A lot of people don't believe this act of climate change because it's against their religious beliefs. Some people say that it's God's work, but it's actually the human activity that's going on that is polluting our air. There's trash going everywhere. It's what humans are doing, not necessarily God's will. And people don't believe it because of the fact that they don't see the physical harm. But there's irritation to eyes, nose, throat, just your respiratory system in general because of all the pollution in the air. This is the summer of 1917, while this is the summer of 2005. This shows how severe climate change really is. And people don't always see these pictures side by side to realize it. Another issue is gun violence. It's one of the most controversial topics of current times. 58% of American adults say that they have experienced or know someone who has experienced gun violence. The increase of people who are being involved with guns or gun violence they want more gun control because of the fact that they don't want people to go through the same thing that they did before. And the next slide shows the chart of people who are harmed by guns. Look at the US statistics against Canada, Australia, or the UK. We can get this number down, but we have to be able to understand that we have to limit some rights to be able to get things done. The personal beliefs that which guns shouldn't be out there are so easy to attain definitely fuel a fire, but there's two opposing sides saying that the Second Amendment guarantees our rights, giving us guns, but other people don't believe that because of the fact that it's doing so much harm to the U.S. My solutions are just have an open mind. When you're discussing, just have an open mind when saying something you agree with yourself versus someone who doesn't necessarily believe. Just be like, okay, I could be wrong, you could be right, you could be wrong, I could be right. That would change so much. And that goes along with agreeing to disagree. If people are open to the idea, it won't become so personal. Just saying I could be wrong before a statement, it could change the discussion entirely. Some topics wouldn't be so political and so personally taken if we just accept the fact that we could be wrong. A quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg: if you want to influence people, you want them to accept your suggestions, don't say, you don't know how to use the English language, or how could you make that argument? It would be welcomed much more if you have a gentle touch than if you were aggressive.
Okay, a couple of questions for you. The first one is, what evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and why did you choose not to use it?
In my IWA, I came up with a totally different perspective on this. I used the prohibition, and I used a lot of evidence for that, but then I realized it didn't really fit due to the fact that the prohibition was stopped so early because of personal religious beliefs. Can you repeat the second part of the question?
Why did you choose not to use it?
It just went against what I was trying to argue.
Okay, and then your next one is, what might be the real-world implications or consequences of your findings, and what are the implications to our community?
Overall, people can be a little stubborn and always think that they're right. And this isn't something you can really be like, okay, I'm doing this wrong. It's something that you have to like monitor yourself, and you can't really monitor it in other people because you can't be like, hey, chill out. It's more like something that you just have to be aware of, and it's just something that would help the community as a whole.
Anything specific to our community?
Just like, there's a lot of in Price Hill, there's a lot of different like discussions about like the violence going on. If like ways to solve that, like there's so many going around, but people are clashing heads so often that they can't even think, oh my God, that has a good point to it. They're just so caught up in the fact that I want my suggestion to be right.